Conservation Commission member that are on their way, but I think we should get started because we have a lot on our agenda, as does the Planning Board. First of all, I'd like to call our meeting to order, the Conservation Commission meeting to order, and our meeting is being recorded. I need to ask if anyone else is making a recording tonight. No. Mr. Brooks, would you like to?
I'll call the Planning Board meeting to order. It's being televised and recorded. Is anyone in the audience recording?
Okay.
No.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to welcome the Planning Board and thank you very much for joining us this evening. This has got to be historic. I've been on this board for 24 years, and this is the first time this has ever happened. And I think it's terrific, and I really appreciate the Planning Board reaching out to the Conservation Commission on this project. It's a huge project for the community, and I appreciate your interest in our issues because we do have issues that cross over on both sides, and I think, you know, this is really, I think it helps to understand each other's efforts. And over the years, I've been to a lot of Planning Board meetings, but this is the first time the Planning Board's, you know, met with us, and I think it's wonderful, and I really appreciate you guys coming. A lot of us don't know each other, so I thought maybe we could go around the table, starting with Chairman Brooks from the Planning Board, and then just introduce yourselves if you would.
Ronnie Brooks, Planning Board.
Jim Rothra.
Wendy Steinhoven. Sheila Conroy.
Dan Carpenter.
Stacy McGann.
Mike Garland. Dan Wright.
And I'm Ann Weston. So anyways, again, that all being said, and we also have our Director of Inspectional Services, Adam Burney's, joining us tonight. So welcome to all of you. Anyways, the item that we're here about is for us, it's a continued public hearing on Masad Family LLC at 50 Faith Avenue. Is there a motion from Conservation to reopen our public hearing?
So moved. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. You want to open your hearing, sir?
7 o'clock hearing. Applicant is Masad Family requesting a modification of the approved site plans as allowed under section 3263 of the Auburn zoning bylaws. The property located at 50 Faith Avenue, Auburn, Mass. Map 55, parcels 1, 2, 3, 181, 182. Map 60, parcels 12, 15, and 16, and map 61, parcel 16. Also, applicant Masad Family LLC, Diamond Service Facility, requesting the approval of a definitive subdivision plan for property is located at 50 and 51 Faith Ave and 768 Washington Street, map 55, parcels 1, 2, 3, 181, 182, map 61, parcels 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 68.
Okay.
We have a motion from the Planning Board to open the hearing?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Okay. I think, from what I understand, the Planning Board has had a presentation on your site plan approval for this project, and we've had one presentation from Waterman Design on our side on the new filing for the roadway and for the request to amend our order of conditions for the prior plan. I don't know if Mr. Waterman, Mike Scott, the engineer from Waterman, is on vacation, so I think we have Brian Waterman.
Yes.
Okay. Excuse me, Frank. Anyway, so Brian Waterman is a wetland specialist with Waterman Design. So I know we shared with you we had a wetlands consultant take a look at the wetlands replication protocol, the wetlands and the existing condition of the replicated wetlands. As you may, I'm sure you understand that if this roadway is built, it's going to go through a replication area that was created to make up for wetland impact from the prior filing. So that's our issue. So we had a wetlands consultant, Margaret Washburn, take a look at the wetland replication protocol and take a look at the wetland that's currently out there. And unfortunately, she's away on vacation tonight, so she sent us her report, and I sent it to Mr. I had Sheila send it to Mr. Waterman.
Yeah, we got it yesterday.
Okay, did you have an opportunity to take a look?
We haven't been able to address everything in detail, but I can go through, some of the bullet points.
All right, if you
We'd
would.
like to get some feedback from you guys, give our opinion on some of the things.
Yeah, I made some notes too on what, I thought was critical, so why don't you, if you want to address it, and then we can.
Sure.
discuss it.
Again, for the record, I'm Brian Waterman, Wetland Specialist, Waterman Design Associates. As Ann pointed out, Mike Scott, the professional engineer that's been attending these hearings, is on vacation. But I think since the last hearing, the commission had several key points, which were, excuse me, they wanted a peer reviewer, which Ann just outlined was Michael Washburn. One of the DEP comments, and something that Margaret touched on, was hiring of a habitat evaluation for the over 50 linear feet of bank that would be altered if this was allowed to go through, and also submittal of an additional alternatives analysis. I'll touch base on the alternatives analysis quick before I go into Margaret's, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
This represents the existing site as it is right now. The red outline is the property line. This is Faith Ave. Route 20 is up here, and Faith Ave going out to the west here. The existing wetland that comes down, and these are the two compensatory areas, replication areas on each side of it here. Originally, the first alternative and the most desirable would have been come almost a straight shot down here, cross, just a little crossing over the existing wetland, and then tie in. The Massads have spoken to this abutter, and apparently there's some deal on that property. They can't do anything for 5 years, or they aren't willing to deal, so that we don't have that option available. The other option would be to realign and come this way and avoid any alteration, but then you're eating up so much of the Massad's parking and drive area that that's not a viable option for them. The preferred option that is before you now is the one we see here, where it does come through the wetland. Here's the property line off to the side here. This is Johnson Seaman Engineering here, which would be, you're going to impact this replication area, but you're tying into the road here. And then one other option was, it was brought up, how about bridging this replication area? Mike did look into that. It would create a span of over 60 feet, and due to the geometry, you need quite a bit of large retaining walls. So just to get this height above the wetland so that you're not completely shading it out, and you're basically altering it as it is, even with a bridge. Not alone just the cost and mechanical areas, the overall future maintenance with retaining walls and for the town, that's really not a viable option either. So those were the alternatives, and that's how we ended up at the one we're at currently, which this one I can show you a little better. So if this drive was allowed, this is the one that we're proposing now. Excuse me. You'd have a small retaining wall. You'd have full drainage, so there'd be an improvement in drainage infrastructure and stormwater out here. I think Margaret did allude to that as well. And this lighter green would become your replication area, which is just off the property. The property line is right here. And the existing wetland coming down. There's an intermittent stream that comes down back behind Langway Ford and traverses through the property here. So that's kind of touching on the alternatives analysis and why we're here. So I'll touch on on Margaret's letter and some of the other requests that you had, unless you have some questions on the alternatives.
No, I just wanted to share with the planning board, under the Conservation Commission's regulations, we have state law to uphold, and the lament of the DEP is avoid, minimize, mitigate. You avoid filling wetlands whenever you can, you minimize the filling whenever you can, and you mitigate for what you've taken. So, to that extent, it's required to do an alternatives analysis to demonstrate why we have to have filling of wetland as opposed to finding another means of accomplishing the project without having any impact or little impact to a wetland. So that's why we're going through this exercise, and this was
Is the
required.
new replication area that they designed the same square footage as the old replication area?
It'd actually be slightly larger. Actually, it'd be just about the same, 6,000. If you added in the, yes, it'd be about 6,000, it'd be even, yes.
It's not that simple though,
It's not that
because the
simple.
performance standards require 5,000 square feet of disturbance as a maximum, and what's proposed is over 6,100 square feet. So this project as proposed violates,
So 1,000 square feet?
plus the original 2,000 plus the 4,000 that was created to remediate the previous problem.
When we get into
So for a
Margaret
total of
Wash,
6,100.
when we get into Margaret Washburn's evaluation,
So,
excuse me,
That's by
I'm
regulation.
going to keep order here. Go ahead, Michael.
That's just by regulation. You can
I'm just asking questions.
Yeah, I have
Okay.
one person at a time.
But it, unfortunately, again, under the performance standards set forth under the Code of Master Regulations, a maximum disturbance that's typically allowed is 5,000 square feet. What is proposed here would be 2,000 square feet plus the disturbance of the original 4,100 square feet. So it's a total of 6,100.
And actually, Mr. Rother, if you have an opportunity to read Margaret Washburn's report, you will see in there that one of the problems with this thing that she found was that what's indicated in the notice of intent is the 2,000 square feet of new wetland filling of previously undisturbed natural bordering vegetated wetland, what we call BVW. However, they did not include the more than 3,000 square feet of filling of that for that replication area. That replication area now counts as a wetland. They didn't even include that in their notice of intent. So instead of just 2,000 that's represented in the notice of intent, it's actually 6,130 square feet of wetland alterations collectively. Mr. Waterman, go ahead.
Okay. Well, this is, all right, we might as well start going through Margaret's letter. Well, I will say that one of the other requirements was the habitat analysis. The LaSalle was approved and hired Ecotech
Ecotech.
is going to do the habitat analysis on the replication area as it exists now.
Do you know who from Ecotech is handling that?
I believe it's Scott Jordan. He does their habitat reviews.
Okay.
I said we just received this yesterday, so we haven't had a chance to go through everything. But I did meet Margaret out there and walk the area with her. She had some questions, you know, where the property line fell, where the existing wetlands were located, and then just to kind of orient where we would be excavating if this goes forward. So, and then we did, Scott and I both had a conference call with with Margaret, before she left and he left. So we've kind of expanded on some of these areas that aren't addressed in this. So we've kind of answered some of the questions she's asked for. So I will touch on those. You know, she did point out that the replication area, let me go back. Bear with me, there are a lot of plans on this project. So essentially, the existing, the wetland that was mapped way back when this project was done is what you see in the gold color, and the new replication area that we just located and HST has located are these two blobs, if you will, right here. So those are the extra 3,900 or 4,000 square feet that Mr. Garland and were pointing out. So what Margaret has pointed out that, yeah, those areas now total about 4,130 square feet. And then the other 2,000 square feet that's in the notice of intent application is this part of the wetland that was pre-existing. This 3,900 square feet was not in response to 3,900 square feet of wetland that was originally filled. There actually was, the only wetland alteration that occurred on this site previously was 575 square feet. There was an intermittent bank that flowed through the site and then disappeared. Ecotech had originally argued that they didn't feel the bank. Margaret felt it was, and they came to some agreement.
Well, actually, DEP got involved and came out to the site and agreed that there was a channel there, and what they did was they filled in that channel and they eliminated that channel. So the replication area that was created was to give back for all of that. And the bottom line is that whether it was required or whether you think it was unnecessary or whatever you think about it, it exists today. And it's already been acknowledged that it's a viable wetland. So it's a wetland.
All right, well,
So you still have to address it.
all right, I'm just trying to address it. So, exactly, there was no wetland alteration, there was bank. The bank was replicated within this area, and as a byproduct of that, they did create this 4,100 square feet of wetland, which is viable, it's functioning now. It has not been approved or accepted yet through a certificate of compliance. You have 2 years to establish it. What we're saying is, you have a active construction site, you have a valid order of conditions, you have a replication area now that has not been accepted yet. All we're asking is, we're not trying to get rid of it, we're trying to move it.
Isn't that kind of the same thing?
Well, right, you have the, if you take the replication area now is that. So that's the 4,100 and the 2,000. That's the 6,100. What we're asking is, right now this is still under an order and under it's not been accepted yet. Is, can we move this to here? You're basically taking that blob, putting it here, and we're expanding it. We're creating an additional 200 and something feet of bank. And then in our discussions with Margaret that we had on the phone, there was this proposed, the main channel that flows through this wetland comes down like this, through this skinny finger here. There's now an overflow channel that comes through this kind of point you see here and into this side of the site right now. That's why we've shown intercepting of this channel for the hydrology. Margaret had made a comment about in her letter that we're only bordering on 90 feet where this borders on some of the outer fingers here. She suggested turning this 90 degrees. So if we turn that 90 degrees, we're on someone else's property. We can't do that. The property line is right here. So we can't turn it because we can't construct it on someone else's land. So that's not a viable option. If you look at this blob right here, and we move this to here, so we're still contiguous with the same wetland, we're only expanding. I know she had some comment that it's kind of a finger-like, that this is a natural, you can see by the crazy angles in this wetland, this is not a pristine, if you will, natural wetland. If you go in here, you'll find concrete, stone,
Right.
There's been some historic disturbance on
Yes,
this.
correct.
Yeah. So, all we're asking, we're not trying to get rid of this. We're just trying to relocate it while it's still an active construction project, and actually make it bigger and expand bank. If you guys determine that that's not viable, then that's your purview. We're just trying to present our case And when I looked at this out in the field with Margaret, even she will admit that, you know, I said basically, if you're looking at this, and we want to replicate it here, this is a nursery night right now. You know you've got vegetation that's working with the soils and hydrology here. We can make this work here, 50 feet away.
Did you notice in her letter, though, that she says somewhere in there, but she's concerned about the suitability of the soils in the
Yeah.
area where you want to replicate? Because
Yeah.
there have been disturbed soils.
Well, that's because they did drive in here when they put in the underground storage tanks. I think that's what she's counting as the disturbed soils. But this whole site is beautiful gravel all the way through to here. So I think she's thinking about the disturbance that she and I walked over where the tanks are. I know she had a comment about the tanks. I told her in the field that if this is built, obviously those get removed. This existing pavement right there would be taken out, so that becomes wetland. And obviously the tanks are moved.
Where would the tanks be moved?
Do you know where the underground storage tanks are going to be relocated to? Have you thought about that yet? No, they're just propane tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what size?
I don't, I do not off the top of my head.
Okay.
We can find out. There's two, I believe there are two right off the
I
edge of
think
the
there is two,
pavement, right here.
I can find
Uh,
out.
And when Margaret and I were out here, she had questioned why we showed this, one of our channels coming up to this point. And I told her that when I was out on the site a while back, that when flows are running, they will break, they'll divide here. One comes this way, and one does go through this point onto our property. So we're doing that to intercept that flow and create this channel. And the day Margaret and I were out here, sure enough, it was flowing through here at our feet. So she said that would actually, you know, supply the hydrology into that channel at that point. I think it worked out well. It's been so rainy, we went out there and it sure enough was flowing through there. Let's see this. Yeah, the soils morphology. We don't have actual soil testing there, but we know from talking to the contractors, even Margaret, when she was out here, I guess she was here when this replication area was built.
Yes, she was.
She said the soils were, you know, beautiful. So, and once you grade this down, I mean, the existing contour here is about 630. You're going down to 628, which is the same grade here. You're matching that elevation. So that just happened to work out that way, that they basically cut 2 feet here. That's exactly what we'd be doing here. Same soils, subsoils. You had gravel there, you can have gravel here, and then you're bringing in your compost or whatever your soil composition will be for that hydric soil. The one thing is that what we've proposed is to basically scrape and pick this up and move it. So you've already got your seed base. I know she had some comments about knotweed. The knotweed right now is really contained up in this riprap edge. A lot of it hasn't gone into the wetland. And knotweed really shouldn't creep into a wetland. It doesn't like its feet wet for an extended period. But
Well, she did say in her letter, though, that the
Yeah, there's
Japanese
one
knotweed's
little-
pretty invasive, and then it's on both slopes of both replication areas.
yeah, it's on the slopes. It's up in this riprap. There is a little bit of creep into. There's a little higher spot here where you have some. If you catch it early, you can cut it and spray it with Roundup.
Is there any plans to do anything with that?
Well,
Are there any plans?
that would be if depending on where this goes. I mean, other than that, yeah, they could do some kind of a control program for knotweed. You could pull it back, put barriers, you can spray it with Roundup or Rodeo. Rodeo you can use near water courses.
One of the best ways to kill it is by just keep cutting it, and then it doesn't make the bulb anymore.
Yeah. And you
That's
can-
the way it's able to grow through asphalt and everything else.
Yeah, it's a nasty. Oh, the groundwater and other things. When Margaret and I were out there, I explained to her that this replication area is set. The outer edge of it is at elevation 628, which is what we've got here, and then the channel You've got the upper channel, which comes down into the main. Those are at half-foot or 2/10 increments through there, so you get a flow. The channels that are in the existing replication right now, there's two that are really just hold water, and then as this overflows, it picks up and goes into the head wall that's there now. This replication area, if it gets high enough, would bleed through two outlets in the retaining wall. The existing one that's now would just be extended over, and then there'd be an overflow if it ever did get that high. So again, in the field, she indicated that she saw what we were doing, that she thought that the elevations would be appropriate there, and that, you know, like I said, this is basically acted as a nursery. If we get to go ahead with this, we've already got indigenous plants that are working with the hydrology in the soils, move it over, and again, then we're expanding that edge. And this is additional plantings above what's already out there. We're planting a lot more trees and shrubs and overseeding with herbaceous. Like I said, creating additional bank. One of the things you will notice inside, we were proposing to do a temporary diversion of that channel, adding some armor rock here and diverting it through. After talking to Margaret, I said, well, why don't we just eliminate that? We're already over on bank creation, so we don't even really need to do that. And with this flow splitting, this will just come down and it bleeds through anyway. So that would be removed from the plans. That temporary alteration would not be part of future.
Okay, so you're going to put that in writing?
Yep.
Okay.
And then she also had a comment on the construction phasing, which
Yep.
I think Mike must have taken that sheet off this. On one of our other sheets, we had construction phasing over here.
Yep.
We talked to Margaret, and we would just flip-flop several things as far as when you would build this retaining wall, as to when you would get in, grade this out, move your soils over. So we revised that, and she was in agreement with the order we came with, so that would be
So
another
the
revision.
replication area would be done first before the retaining
Yeah,
wall?
you'd be phasing it in there to get that over, move these soils, and then do the wall.
Is that going to go in writing too?
Yep. Oh
Okay.
yeah. That'll be on the plans and in the report. She pointed out, she said that Waterman Design should submit their own detailed wetland replication, that we shouldn't use Ecotec's
Yeah, from
protocol.
another, yeah.
The reason we did that is, and we have our own notes and our own planting plan. That's ours. The reason we suggested following Ecotec's protocol for the way the channels and the soil were done, Margaret said the contractor, when she was out here, did a phenomenal job on creating these. There's already a good protocol established that you guys approved. It's been built and did a good job, so why not reuse it? Ecotec didn't have a problem. We work well with Ecotec, and we have our own notes, and we'd be on site during construction, probably with Margaret as well. So we can expand on the protocol and some of the soils enhancements, but you already had a detailed one outline that you guys approved and has worked well. So to us, that, you know,
I think we talked about this at the last meeting. I mean, short of you suggesting that we should pull the other one out of the file and copy it and put it in this file, I don't think that's appropriate. I think you should make a copy if you want. If that's how you're going to handle it, then fine. But I think you need to explain that and give us some detail as to why, and attach, maybe if you want to use their plan and attach a copy of it, and if they've given you your permission to do that, that's fine.
yeah, it was just.
But I think you
it was
need to
just an
detail
error.
that.
All right. Yeah, well, we said we would do that, so. And then she was looking for cross-sections of the proposed wetland surface, which we can certainly run a cross-section and add that to the plan in details.
Another comment she had was about the buffer zone, that you only depicted the buffer zone around the 2,000 square feet of previously undisturbed bordering vegetated wetland that you want to alter, and that the buffer zone actually should be depicted around the wetland replication area.
Well, that hasn't been accepted yet, so it's,
It doesn't matter, it's still a wetland.
okay, well, we can adjust that. I would, okay.
Mr. Waterman, I'm curious, I know you just received Washburn's report yesterday, you said?
Yeah.
Is it your intention to basically respond in writing to each of the points raised?
Yes.
Okay.
And then do the changes that we discussed with Margaret before she left, as far as like the construction sequencing, removing that temporary alteration, expanding on the construction notes, our protocols for replication, and also Ecotech's, and also get Ecotech's report, because I know you want to see that as well. So, I mean, this thing's been functioning for about 1.5 years, so we're not sure what it's going to have for habitat value yet, but that's part of the requirements of the DEP checklist, and also that you want to see. So, in that time, we would address these in detail, expand on all these items, revise the plans, and reissue them so that we could address those things. And any other comments you have tonight, we can address.
So when you do that, you're going to address her comments relative to the need to explain how this project complies with the performance standards for bank
Yeah, we'll
and
address all
BBW? Because we're filling over 5,000 square feet. We have discretionary filling ability up to 5,000 square feet, but does anybody have questions, planning board or conservation commission? I'm sorry, Mr. Brooks.
He's falling asleep.
I'm all set.
I think that each one of these concerns should be numbered, and then an answer to each one of these concerns should be in italics down below, so that we can see what the actual correction is for each one of these things.
Wendy, John?
I apologize for being late. I had it.
No excuse.
No.
I know. Had it in
I
my
appreciate
calendar
the
at
comment.
7:30, so
You're fired.
Can't fire
I'm gonna do some
volunteer.
firing in my eye. It's all right.
Just hold back your
Thank you
pen.
for coming, John.
Thank you.
This is John Weaver, for members that don't know him, from the planning board. Board members?
Do you think you can get this done by our next meeting?
That's what I was just going to ask. When is your next meeting?
July
Yeah.
10th.
Was it?
July 10th?
July 10th. Let's see, Mike. I think Mike comes back the 8th. So we good.
Well,
Well, we could push it
really, you
out.
let him go on vacation for 2 weeks?
No, he went out to Seattle, so.
That's no excuse.
Well, we could push it out to the second meeting in July. We'll take public comment.
July 24th?
Did I get back to you tomorrow morning on that?
We have to continue,
Advertising and
yeah, that's
renotice.
true.
we have to continue to a date certain. I mean, we could always, I want to open it up to public comment before we close, but we could always continue it to the 10th, and if you're not ready, you could just ask for a continuance to the 24th.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Well, before we do that, did you have comments?
Well, I have a couple of quick questions, and obviously Mike's not here, so, and I know you're not a PE, so you might not be able to answer these, but the alterations that we're talking about based on Margaret's report, what's the impact on Mike's work on the engineering of the physical road and the impact that it will have on his review that he received from Graves?
Graves, I think they've already addressed Graves' letter. I don't think there were really anything we couldn't address.
Okay, well, he hasn't resubmitted anything to us or to Graves. There's an initial report, and I know he's been sitting on a resubmission based on this
then
resubmission of the
I'll have to-
conservation and all that. So I guess I asked that question because that may, or it will, impact your ability to be ready for this board on the 10th.
When's the planning board?
And the planning board would be the 9th. And that meeting is highly in question due to attendance of quorum. So
Okay.
I guess what I'm suggesting is, as little as it benefits your client and as bad as it may be in their grand schedule, it may be to everybody's best interest for you to just look at continuing to the second meeting of the month, 23rd, 24th. Know that you have that time to be able to address the comments, resubmit new plans, and not have everybody kind of scramble to review your resubmission
Yeah.
in 24 or 48 hours prior to the meeting.
I
So
would-
just a suggestion.
I would agree with that. Why don't we do that?
All
And
right,
then Margaret will be back too, and everyone, and that'll give Ecotech plenty of time to get the report done.
right. Something we might want to think about, Margaret Washburn is a wetlands consultant to another community, and they meet on the same night as we do, so I don't know if you want to think about meeting on a different night or...
Another suggestion through the chair.
Yes, sir.
If this meeting seems beneficial, and if we're going to continue this project to a point where both boards would be looking to wrap it up, I don't want to speak for my board, but I think that Mr. Brooks may extend the invitation for you folks to join us on a Tuesday night.
On the
And that may
23rd?
free Margaret up to attend your meeting.
Right, I was just thinking the same thing.
Simple suggestion, and
Mhm.
you know, I leave it to the members of the boards to consider.
Would you consider that?
Yes.
You would the board consider coming on Tuesday night instead of Wednesday?
The 9th,
What date
or
was
the
that?
20th.
The 23rd.
23rd.
The 23rd. Are you amenable to that?
23rd and
23rd?
24th?
No,
Just
just the 23rd, having a joint session like this again.
Oh, sure.
So that way you'd only have to come, see, it saves your time too. You'd only have to come one night instead of two. Okay.
The 23rd?
The 23rd. So before we do that though, I know there's some, is there any public comment for either planning or conservation? No?
Yes.
Oh, can we just have your name for the record?
It's Rob Johnson. We're the abutter, 30 Faith Ave. Kevin Seaman and I are partners. We both own the land together. So we put together a letter. It's really for both boards on our concerns. Brian Waterman has not seen the meeting.
No, you just gave us another letter tonight, I think, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we had a civil engineer look at our property yesterday, a good friend of ours. So we added to the original list that we had mailed you. And we have mailed to the Diamond Group. So I don't know if anyone's looked at our list, but basically, we're right next door.
Right.
Can I walk over to the 20?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, Rob. You're right there, right?
So as you can see, this is our office building. Kevin and I own 30, 28, and 24. That wetlands that they want to relocate would be right next to our property, right down the property line. We've been there about 15 years, and the groundwater level below our basement slab, you can see it. There's a pipe in our boiler room. The water's about 6 inches below that pipe. So our concerns are obvious, I think. You go and put all that water next to our building. I don't know what the high water mark's gonna be. But we only have 6 inches to play with. And what do we do then? Okay, so there's a big concern. What does it do to devaluing our property value by having that wetlands there? Right now it's back here, and we can do pretty much whatever we want to our building with adding on, not getting permission from different boards. So that's a big deal, right?
I guess so, apparently.
Yeah, we're in a zone where we need a lot of requirements, and right now we don't. So we have a wetland, we have a water issue, and we have devaluation of our property. And we know it benefits them greatly, but the only one, we're the big losers here. So we wrote a letter, we have our concerns to you guys. We'll get a copy to Brian,
Yeah.
and we can
Maybe you
start
could
addressing
address
this
that.
stuff.
Copies right here.
Mm-hmm.
I think Waterman has to address that, in the design of that
Absolutely.
replication.
Yep.
Maybe they have to go deeper and whatever it is to keep the water level down so that doesn't affect his groundwater level, which is already high.
What is your civil engineer? Can we ask who the civil engineer was?
Yeah, it was Steve Balsavich, BC Survey
Yep, from Oxford.
from Oxford, correct.
You're concerned about the property being devalued, is that a hunch of yours, or has an appraiser told you that?
If you need that, I can get it.
I'm just asking.
No, I know it though. I mean, I can get values if you want them.
Mhm.
My wife's a realtor, she works for Greenbanks. It's not a big deal to get that. I know it'll have an impact.
Okay.
And there's no question about that. And our biggest worry is Kevin and I, we're in the office in the lower level. all the valuable stuff is in the basement of 35th Ave, 6 inches from this water. And I don't want to move my office, so that is the number one concern besides devaluing and besides everything else I mentioned. You can read our letter, there's a short list there.
Right.
I think Mr. Waterman has to spend some good time in designing this so that that doesn't happen. And when you
Yeah.
can ensure that.
Yeah, we'd like to see the letter and then we can address it.
Yeah, I think the PE is gonna have to take a look.
So,
Can I have this copy?
Yeah, sure.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
I got it, Rob, so
Okay.
I'll give that to Mike.
Is there any other public comment by the board?
Would you be willing to work with him to correct some of these issues that he's talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to look into, I don't know what elevation the basement's at, you know, what
He's not an
elevation.
engineer.
So, I mean, we gotta answer some
Your
questions.
engineer will.
Well, that's what I mean.
Oh, yeah, we'll
Are you
definitely-
your engineer and?
Yes, we'll address everything that we can. Yep.
Is there anything else? All right, then, from Conservation, is there a motion to continue this to July 23rd?
So-
Adam, 7 o'clock, does that work on your agenda?
I think that if we're going to hold a joint hearing, it's
7.
probably appropriate to do that at 7, and that way,
Alright.
after the hearing, both boards can recess and one can
Right.
can adjourn
Okay.
to a separate meeting room.
All right,
I'll second that motion.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted.
Recess till July 23rd at 7 p.m.
I'll make the motion.
I mean, continue the hearing. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is a vote.
Okay. All right, thank you all for coming, and thank you, planning board, I really appreciate you guys, I think it's great.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Thank you.
you.